قلبي على جمعة الخير هلا حني قلبي على جمعة الخير هلا يا هلا ويا هلا ويا هلا ويا هلا يا هلا ويا هلا ويا
Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamu alaikum and welcome once again to a very, very wet Johannesburg, but we're not complaining. Alhamdulillah for the mercy of the rains, but we continue praying for rains in the rest of the country, very especially the Western Cape. Talking water is something we're going to be covering on the show this morning with the renowned Tim Neary. He's an environmentalist, but he's waiting in the wings, and we'll be chatting with him later about water and the ecosystem. We're also going to be talking about mobility training at Madrasa Noor, but right now we're going to be talking money matters, and I think it's the right time of year to be talking about the issue around money and black people. We have a giveaway on the show this morning. Busi Salesho is our guest. This is the book she's written, and I would say not a moment too soon. We all need more money, and we all know, or rather need to know, how to manage our money. So she's written this book, and the good news is that we have 3 of these books on giveaway this morning. So if you call in with a question or a comment, you'll walk away with one of these books and hopefully learn how to manage your money in a more savvy way. Let's introduce you to this very savvy young woman who's also won the Best Speaker Awards both in 2015 and 2016. We're going to unpack all of that on the show this morning. Busi, morning, welcome to the show.
Thank you for inviting me. I'm really, really excited.
Well, we're excited to have you here, and a shout out to our producers for having tracked you down, because you're the type of person we need to feature here, because we all want to know how to manage money, smartly, I should imagine.
Have more of it.
Absolutely. Now, your book is called Money and Black People, Why Black People Don't Have Money, and How to Heal Your Money Story. Why have you called it, and why the emphasis on black people?
So it has definitely, that title has gotten me into a lot of trouble, as you could imagine. But what I'm talking about when I say black people, I'm not talking about the color of skin. I'm actually talking about the consciousness of knowing that you are this or you are not this. So you could be a black person or you could be a white person, but you could also be human, which then makes you none of these things. You could be a man, you could be a woman, but then when you're a woman, then there's things that you think applies to you. When you're a human, all of a sudden, all is available. So the book is about the consciousness of money, how we have been taught to think of money and what money is not. So we've been taught to think of money as something physical, but money is an energy. We do not connect with the monies we want because of how we think about the monies we want. I always say, if you know how to make 10 rands, you are okay with that and you are confident in that. But you absolutely don't think the same way about a million rand. Because now $1 million is something that is out of my abilities. I don't have the resources to make $1 million. I am not the right person. I'm not the right skin color. I'm not the right gender. I'm not worthy of it. So, but the truth is that the same energy and the same resources you use to make a 10 rand, it's the same resources you use to make $1 million. You don't change anything. You don't change who you are. You don't change your abilities. You don't change your resources. The only thing between the two is how you think about each of them.
Okay, so tell us a little bit about yourself and what's brought you to this point, to the point where obviously you've actually written a book.
So I lost my mother at 6 years old. So at about 7 years, I finally understood that I did not have a mother, and that meant I did not have parents, so a mother and a father. At that time, that meant that I do not have anyone to take care of me. And everyone around me, what I heard was that money is going to take care of you going forward now. If you don't have money, you are in big trouble. So you better find money very quickly.
But that is our mentality, isn't it? We all believe that if I had X amount of money, I'd be happier, I'd be more successful,
True.
I'd attract the kind of partner I've been dreaming about all my life, I'll be respected. And to a certain extent, that is true.
It is.
Because
it
let's
is.
face it, people, I often say people don't respect necessarily who you are, but what your worth is. So it's really about your worth,
True.
sadly. So we have, you know,
yes, and it's
our ideas about money and respect and credibility is kind of misplaced.
It is. So after that whole losing my mother and me understanding that money was going to take care of me, I then went on to do well. So I would do well at school. I would be, you know, the best in the class, because at that time I was preparing myself from that age that one day I need to get out of this situation by finding a good job, you know, getting good education and actually having a good life, because that's the only thing that could make me. Now I get to grade 12 and there's no money to go to varsity, and I mean, a miracle happened. At that point in time, no one was working in my family, and all of a sudden my sister got a miracle job and she was able to take me to just register. And after that registration, a whole lot of things happened. But in all that, my mind was that I need to get the education because I need the money. So all that has happened. I had slept without food. I had slept on the floor without blankets, but I was just keep going to school. And then it happened that I graduated. And then
And what did you study?
I studied IT.
Of all things?
Yeah.
I thought you were an economist.
Never. So I studied IT and I got, I passed very well, and I got a great job, and I was paid a lot of money for that time specifically.
So at that point in time, your dreams had become a reality as far as you were concerned.
And
but it didn't stop there.
No. So now I'm thinking, wow, this is great. I've made it. And then 4 months down the line, debit orders started to come out of my account. And I'm thinking, what? Now I don't have money again. Now, did I know about credit? Did I know about how to use money and not? And obviously the environment I grew up in was all about debt, was all about we don't have money, was all about we can't afford this and that. So I have money, but I'm running that script. So I end up at about 6 months with so much credit that I don't even know what it's about. I mean, the only thing that I remember actually buying on credit was a TV that I bought for my sister, because now she has took me through all this. I thought, let me just buy a big screen TV. That TV was 2,000 Rand. I was earning almost about 8,000 Rand. I had 2,000 Rand cash, but I did what? I went and bought it on credit. So because I knew that you buy cars, houses, furniture and everything on credit. So that was my mentality. And that's what I talk about, that we have learned this wrongdoing. It's not even something that...
So what I'm hearing you saying is that's not the route to go. Yeah. And I should imagine that's a very big lesson or a very big highlight point in your book is try not to buy on credit. Don't get yourself involved in debt. Okay, so then to move on, how did you get to the point of writing the book?
So now,
are you still in IT?
Yeah, now I'm in IT, but then I find out that I also don't like IT. It's not me. I'm not someone who is glued, who needs to be glued to a computer. I'm a person that wants to talk to people. Hence now I'm a speaker and I speak everywhere and I'm always talking. So now I find out that I don't like IT, but then I don't have money. So there's two things. The job I hate the job, and I don't have the money. So then I hear that you should start a business. Go ahead and start a business. And then at that time, I went and started a business. The first business that I started was a property business. It went so well until 2008, where the whole world system crashed and that business went down. But then I was thinking, now do I get back to a job, or do I continue? So from that time, I continued starting one business after the other. And finally, one day, someone said to me, because I will start businesses, great businesses, they will make so much money, but they will die so fast. If I could tell you the stories, you'll be shocked of how quickly they will die. But someone said to me, you need to do something that you're passionate about and something that you love. And I found the business that I loved. And at that moment, I was in so much debt of starting businesses that had failed that I had actually now was sequestrated and everything was taken away from me. The house, the car. I remember my Mercedes-Benz being towed away. And I thought, wow. after all this hard work, this is what I get at the end, to be left with nothing. But then that's when I found out that what you do, you need to love it, and it needs to be you're passionate about it. That is when the money stays with you.
But underpinning all of this, it's about being money savvy.
Totally.
And that's what your book is all about.
Totally. And then I get to a point now where I then learned how money is actually connected to me. Now I learned the spirituality of money. I learned the consciousness of money. I learned the energy of money. And that business, from starting it with nothing, it became a multi-million rand business that has won me awards, and I was able to do so much with it, hired so many people. That is when I then, when the business was now doing well, and then I did not have to be in the business, I went and studied coaching in Canada. And now I was doing that because I wanted to give back. I wanted to explain it to another person. How does this money consciousness thing work? How do you actually get to a point where you have money that you actually enjoy, and you can sit with your kids at home, and you don't have to work so hard for money? You actually can allow money into your life, not go and look for it.
Okay, that's the one key thing you're going to have to leave us with today, is the whole connectivity and the consciousness of money, and how you actually attract it into your life, because I need to know this.
Yeah. And
as would all of our viewers. But the good thing is that obviously 3 of these books are on giveaway this morning, and everything that Busi talks about is contained in the book. So if you learn how to become money conscious, you're going to be a multi-millionaire. That's what she tells us. So call in, share some information with us, thoughts, questions, comments, whatever it is that's on your mind, and you will be able to walk away with one of these books. Now, I also want to know about what is it that, you know, the issue around the Best Speaker Awards in 2015 and 2016. What were the topics of those talks of yours that won you Best Speaker?
So it was everything around entrepreneurship. I am really passionate about entrepreneurship, because I understand that when you're an entrepreneur, you are not saying to the world, give me something. You're actually saying, here is something I've got. And actually, being an entrepreneurship does not just serve you, it serves a lot of people. So I was talking a lot on entrepreneurship, how to start a business without money, how to get your business to run without you, how to actually enjoy your business and not be the slave of your business. And then obviously talks about money, how to have a better relationship with money. And one of the greatest things that are in the book is a 30 days program. 30 days money mindset program that I have used myself, and I've given to a lot of my clients over the past 3 years, that has totally changed how they are thinking about their money. So that is one of the good things in the book, that you get to give yourself 30 days of just looking at, why am I not having the money I want? Where am I not doing it correctly? And it's not about how you're not saving, how you're not budgeting, because we've done that. We know about that. We know what is a budget. We know what is savings, but we do not understand what is behind all of that. You can never save if your mind is not allowing you to save. You can never have a budget that you stick to if your consciousness is not into that.
All right. Now, people watching us this morning would probably say it's great for Busi to be sitting there talking about money consciousness, you know, attracting money into your life, having written a book. But she's had a head start. She's had a great start in life. She's had a good education. She's had opportunities. And it's great and it's fine for her to be sitting and talking about the power of attracting money in your life. What about me? I'm not educated. I don't know about all those tricks. And perhaps also the networks that Busi has.
Yeah.
So it's fine for her to be sitting and talking there in her position of a multimillionaire. You know, money attracts money. I have nothing. How am I going to attract those millions?
Which is the one important thing that I keep.
All right, hold that thought. Let's take our first caller, and possibly also the person who's going to walk away with one of these books. To our caller, Assalamu alaikum, welcome to the program. Hello, caller, are you there? Okay, caller has dropped. They got cold feet, but
So now the thing about knowing that at this moment I don't have anything, I don't have the education, I don't have the knowing, I don't have all of that. It's one of the things that I stress the most, that you do not need any of this. So I was looking for education because I was told that education is going to get me there. But there is so many people that don't even know how to write their names. They cannot even write a bank check, but they have money. So education is not an excuse. The fact that you're black is not an excuse. There is facts around being black, which means that you were disadvantaged, you were previously disadvantaged, you probably are disadvantaged today, but that's still not an excuse. The fact that you might be a woman because you can get into a boardroom and not be whoever that needs to be, it's not an excuse. The fact that you have not studied is not an excuse. The fact that you live in South Africa is not an excuse. Because the thing that the universe, all of us, when we got born, the day we got born, we got the same value and the same mind. Now, if we did not have the same mind, another person got a bigger one, another person got a smaller one, that would be an issue. But we all got the same mind. So we can use only the mind. We only need the mind. And the mind, you cannot go and buy it somewhere. You already have it from day one. Now, when you understand that your mind is so powerful, and then you understand that money is actually an energy. Now, we breathe air every morning. No one ever wakes up and thinks, oh my goodness, there's no air today. There's not enough air today.
Okay, hold that thought. Let's take our caller. Assalamu alaikum, caller. Welcome. Caller, talk to us. You're on air. Okay, the caller seems to have cold feet. Our producer will take your details and we'll definitely send one of these books to you in the post. Back to you, and two things before we go for an ad break that I need you to respond to is, you're talking about money being an energy and attracting it into your life, but there has to be something else that drives that energy. And let's look at the issue around how much of hard work needs to be put in together with the energy to attract all of that wealth into your life. Don't go away. We're going to take an ad break. When we come back, we're going to be talking about this book. The author sitting in the studio with us. She says money is an energy, and the book is entitled Money and Black People. If you'd like to win one of these books, do call in with a question or a comment. Let's go to the markets, and when we get back, we continue talking to the lovely Boosie. Still to come on the show, Tim Noakes, the environmentalist. He's going to be in here. I'm very excited about that interview. And then we're also going to be talking about mobility training with a visitor all the way from Canada. So do stay with us. We're talking to Boosie Selesho. She is an international accredited money coach. She's written a book called Money and Black People. This is what the cover looks like. We're giving away 3 of these on the show. So if you call in, you do stand a chance to win one of these books. And we're talking about the energy, the positive energy of attracting money into your life and keeping it there. I asked you a question before the ad break, and that was, it's fine to attract and, think positively and do all of these self-affirming messages to yourself in the shower, etc. But how much of hard work is involved as well? What is the other stuff you do to attract the money into your life, to work at attracting it into your life?
Totally. That's the most important part of this. Now, one of the things is this: when your energy, so I call it a vibration, is high, you attract the thoughts and the ideas that are in the high vibrating levels. So for instance, you want to go and get a job. So you could just, with an energy of, I don't have a job, I've been looking for a job for 5 years, I can't find one, let me send as many CVs as I can. So you go into the internet, you send 100 CVs.
But you've got a very negative mindset, because I don't. Am I worthy?
Yes. So you keep sending them, you keep sending them, you keep sending them. No one answers you. When they answer you, they call you for an interview, you fail. But then now, when your vibration is high, which is one thing that you will learn in the 30 days that is in the book, how to increase that vibration. Once you do the same activity, the same action with a high vibration, the thing is that, number one, you're not going to send your CVs to 100 companies, because when you do this, there's a whole meditation that you do that connects you to your higher self. Your higher self knows everything, knows the past, knows the future. Now, your higher self is that voice that we always hear in our heads that says, do this, maybe this is a good idea. And then you always hear the other one, that's fear, that says, maybe you can't do this, maybe this is not going to work. But when you are in a high vibration, you actually hear your higher self clear. So it will say, go and put your CV on this company, one company, and you actually focus on that company calls you for an interview, and you think you are the best thing ever.
Okay, and then you'd be successful. What about those people? You know, I often come across people in life that maybe it's just their character or personality type, where they kind of say to you, money's not important. I've got my good health. I'm in a good space right now. Why do I have to chase after money? What sort of vibration are they tapped into? And is that saying to us that those people are never ever going to amount to anything?
No. When you don't stress about money, and you truly do not stress about it, so you're not desperate about it, you're not thinking that you not having money is the end of the world, you will attract what you want. So you could be at a place where you're saying, I don't want to have all the blings of the world, but I just want to be comfortable, which is good. That's what you want. So the universe will give you what you want. But when you say, I am not going to go and look for what I want because I'm just thinking this is all I am, you're still going to get that. So that person is in a good space. If they're doing this, I have good health, I've got good this, I don't have to have money. If that's really what they want, they really want
hold that thought, please.
Yeah.
Assalamu alaikum to our caller, welcome.
Assalamu
Go ahead, please.
alaikum. Assalamu alaikum, Julie.
Wa alaikum salam. You're breaking up. Do you want to just talk to us very quickly before we lose you?
Okay. I would like to know, will you keep having talk in a workshop in Pakistan?
Did you get that?
No, in where?
All right, you're breaking up. All right, I think speak to our producer and then she'll talk to us and we'll respond to you, inshallah, as soon as we get that question. But thank you for calling. And of course, you're going to receive one of our books. So sorry that we couldn't hear you. Okay, back to you and money and marriage. We know that lots and lots of marriages break up and are very troubled simply because the finances are not in place or expectations are very high on either one of the spouses. So I marry someone and I'm expecting a very glitzy life. He's not able to provide for me, or he's just very poor at money management, and that just creates a whole host of problems in our marriage. What do you say to us about money and marriage in your book?
So, marriage is supposed to be about love.
Not about money.
Not about money. But unfortunately, money plays a big role in relationships, marriage or not. So, the good thing is this. When the money is there, the marriage is okay. But when the money is not there, then we find all those things. But the thing is this, it's not about the money. It looks like it's about the money, but it's all about insecurity, fear, ego, and all those things. So,
and sadly, we live in a very consumerist society.
Yes.
All of us don't sit with what or buy or acquire what we need. It's all about what we want. And half of the wants that we have in our lives, we don't even need.
No, we don't.
And look at all the pressure we're putting on ourselves and our partners.
Yeah. So when you enter a marriage, we always have been taught that there is, the man is supposed to take care of the woman most of the time.
The provider.
Yes, he's supposed to be the one who takes care of everything. But then now look at this. If you are one day, we get born and you are now a boy, you are a girl. If, unfortunately, you are a boy, you're supposed to take care of other people. So it's your job from day one. Now you get into a marriage and you love this person, but you do not have the energy or even the capability of taking care of a whole new person. But this person actually expects you to take care of them because that's what society says. But if we both understood that money we need, definitely, but money does not come from either one of us.
Okay, so I think what you're really saying here is that those expectations need to be verbalized. We kind of expect, or prior to the marriage, we don't raise those issues because they're embarrassing, or you think that the partner is going to be put off. He or she may think I'm after their money. So I'm not going to talk about money, but after the marriage, the issue around money rears its ugly head. Okay, before we wrap up, the caller that called in just now, whom we couldn't hear, wants to know, when are you having a workshop in Cape Town?
Oh yes, I'm having the book launch in Cape Town on the 24th of March. It's going to be in one of the wine estates. I'm going to post the invitation on my Facebook page, and it's also going to be on my website. So my website is busiselesha.com, and my Facebook page is Money with Busi. Money with Busi on Facebook. So you can check on either one of those. You will see the details for the Cape Town.
Okay, great. There's so many more questions, just not enough time to go through everything I'd like to cover this morning. But of course, people can go out and buy the book. It is available at all good bookstores.
It's on the website. They order it online and it gets delivered to them.
Okay, perfect. So we spoke money and marriage, which obviously we know can break up marriages.
Totally.
Marriages just break down horribly with the issue
it's
around
the number
money.
one problem in marriages.
Okay.
Yeah.
Let's talk about your Best Speaker Award. What exactly did you talk about that you won awards 2 years in a row?
So I talk about money, I talk about entrepreneurship, I talk about how to start a business that you can be able to enjoy, so and the money and the relationship with money. And on the relationship with money, really I talk about how you raise your vibration, that you attract the things that are in the higher vibration. You know, when you are in a low vibration, going out here, driving out on the street, you will get bumped by someone. This will happen.
Don't even go there, because I had a similar experience this morning. But let's hold that thought. Last caller and then 2 minutes to wrap up. Assalamu alaikum to you. Welcome. Caller, you're on air. Please go ahead. Oh,
No,
caller's gone.
good.
Okay, fine. Let's wrap up. We've talked about vibrations, we've talked about energy, we've talked about attracting all of the good things in your lives. People attending your courses and your seminars and money coaching, what would you be able to give them? Let's assume I come to you and say to you that I'm not managing my money. I don't have money. I want to become a millionaire or a multimillionaire. What are you going to do with me in the coaching session that I can attract all of that into my life?
So in a coaching session, a one-on-one coaching session, what we do is we first find out why you don't have the money. So it's not about the job you have or the business you have, but we find out what is the trauma, the financial trauma that you had. Sometimes, you know, when we were 3, all of us had that instance where we find out what money is, and all of us, it was something. It might have been a mother that is crying, it might, because she's just spent too much, she doesn't have money, or it might have been your father buying you ice cream and you're thinking, wow, money can actually buy me ice cream. But we all have had a situation where we were introduced to money, and that situation is what is currently running through our whole entire life. And after that, you might find yourself in debt, and you find that you are in debt because your husband actually took the debt and now you are both in it. And you thinking, because subconsciously, I don't want to pay this. This is not my doing. I told him not to do this. And you're trying in your conscious level, in the logic, to pay it off, but it just doesn't go away. So we look at why you are in this. And then the second level, we look at how you can change
Unfortunately,
this
we
whole situation.
don't have time for that, but very quickly, have you had amazing stories of people having turned their lives around after reading your book and attending your coaching sessions?
I have got about 4 online courses that I've been running for the past 2 years, and people's lives have changed. I mean, people have gone from hating their jobs to getting jobs that they love. They've gone from hating their jobs and actually getting into business that make them more money than they ever thought they would. People have found out what they are passionate about, what they love doing, and actually make money out of it. So we have amazing stories. We have a whole Facebook group that has all those stories, and that group is called How to Manifest 100K. 100K. So I'm literally in that group. I'm teaching people how to manifest 100K.
Brilliant. And that's where we're going to leave it. I
out.
have no doubt that you've really given people food for thought, and I do hope and pray that you've left lots of that positive energy here in the studio for us today. And good luck with the sales of the book. Thank you for being with us on the show this morning.
Thank you for inviting me.
Well, there you have it. Busi Selesho, the author of the book Money and Black People, with some very positive energy. We started on a positive, good news story this morning, and you can turn your life around. You can turn your financial situation around. So says Busi, and we certainly are going to read the book and see how we can turn our lives around. She was a breath of fresh air. Still to come, Tim Neary, the environmentalist, and thereafter we're going to be talking mobility training, so do stay with us. And welcome back. I'm truly excited to have Tim Neary in studio with us. He is the well-known environmentalist. He has done so many things in his life. He's done production, he continues doing radio work, and he brings a breath of fresh air to our lives on a Sunday morning, talking about the ecosystems and the environment. And I've been dying to have him in studio, and finally we managed to pin him down. Tim, good morning, welcome to the program.
Thank you very much, Julie. Yes, it's good to be with you, and it's very strange being at the other end of a camera.
Isn't it just?
Anyway, we've got to get used to it.
Right, there you go. Now, the environment, how did you get involved? Because, you know, I always was under the impression that you studied botany or some such thing. And to my surprise, I see that's not the case. So your interest in, you know, in the environment, ecology, etc., how did this start for you?
Well, effectively, I'm a bulldozer mechanic. So yes, it is quite different. I grew up in a little village outside of Port Elizabeth called Skoenmakerskop. It is 1 Cape mile in length, which is a mile plus a furlong. It was started by my late grandfather and a couple of his mates. So I had, between me and the top of the hill was 65 feet down onto the sea. So I grew up with a wonderful way of rock pools. And my feet always wet, my head always underwater. And because it was an isolated little village, 5 miles from Warmer, outside of Port Elizabeth, in fact. And because it was isolated, we had things like jennets that would visit and dussies and all sorts of other things. So we had a complete wildlife around us. We had the Drift Sands Reserve around us. So it was pretty isolated. And as a child, you grew up with your feet in the water. And I grew up with wonderful people. Athol Fugard was one of them, who was in one of the villages. And Athol had a wonderful interest in nature. So he would take us down onto the rocks and talk to us. Eve Palmer, they had a holiday home there. So there were all these different people that you could actually draw on, and you would sometimes only see them at Christmas time. You would meet them over that December time.
But made an amazing impact on your life.
But they made an amazing impact on your life. And I think it was from the point of view of simplicity. So rather than study, and unfortunately I'm not a great scholar, and rather than study, I ended up being a practical naturalist, I suppose we could say. So I wanted to find out all about the natural world. Not necessarily the scientific stuff, but the scientific stuff in some ways has come with it as I became involved in later years in things like cheetah research and cheetah rehabilitation and reintroduction programs and all sorts of other things. I've had wonderful opportunities through basically being a naturalist.
Now, being a naturalist, obviously the ecosystem plays a huge part in, obviously, plants, animals, etc. And every insect, creepy, crawly animal, bird, etc. is vital, including our water, is vital for the ongoing healthy environment that we find ourselves in. Two things that pops into my head as I speak with you this morning is the rapid urbanization,
right,
and the issue around the water crisis in the Western Cape, obviously. And I'm just beginning to wonder, just this morning on the news I heard that Port Elizabeth, there seems to be mumblings and grumblings that there's going to be issues around water in that part of the world as well. So as a naturalist or a person that's very interested in the environment and the ecology of our country, How do you see the whole issue in Cape Town playing out, and what do we up country need to be doing? We can't be sitting here thinking that we're safe, that nothing's going to touch us. We've had enough rain and we're not going to find ourselves in that situation.
Well, I think let's look at 2 points that you made. And one, I don't look at anything in isolation, so you're quite right. I look at biodiversity. And we need all the bugs and the beetles because people want to look at flowers and they don't seem to understand the importance of a bee. Just that humble little bee going through our system, what he's doing, a bat, and so we carry on. And water, obviously, we've got 3 elements that we have to think about in our planet, and that is water, land, and air. And our water is broken up into 2. It's broken up into, obviously, the saline, the sea conditions, and then into our normal water that we would drink or use for agriculture. And water is not a new issue in our country. In fact, water is mostly the biggest issue in the world for a number of reasons. One, climate change. And you hit on a very interesting point about the fact of building great cities around our area. And, of course, the other thing is not only that, but pollution. Pollution is mostly even a greater threat because we happily throw our cigarette stompy onto the ground. We happily throw a piece of paper into the river and we don't understand
the plastics and the wastage that we create.
And, it was quite a sad thing if we just touch on the sea for a moment. 100% of turtles have got plastic in them in the ocean. If you take that turtle and you take a sample out of its stomach, you will find pieces of plastic. And that's a very sad situation. 80% of our bird life in our coastal areas all have plastic in them of some other description.
What about the fish that we eventually ingest?
Yes. Well, you see, that's caught up in their livers and all sorts of other things. So yes, unfortunately, the fish are exactly the same. But let's look at our water. I'm going to go back to the village that I grew up in, and we were quite lucky. We've understood water and the importance of water from a very early age. So I first of all lived in Warmer in Port Elizabeth, and I'm young enough to have water coming out of my taps, and I'm old enough to have water that was delivered in tankers. So we didn't have municipal water in Warmer. We had a tanker. You would order a tanker, the tanker would come along, and it would put water into the underground tank, and you would draw from that to utilize. We had exactly the same in Skoonmakerskop. We would pump from a small well, and that would go to 5 houses. And you got your allocation on a Monday and a Thursday. And that was the end of your allocation. You didn't have this wonderful way of our cities of opening water. So we've also now gone on to the point of increasing. We don't have huge dams on our cities. We don't have the rainfall to fill our dams. And we love to blame the fact that, yes, it's climate change. Well, I think most of it is actually management more than climate change that we should be looking at. And you're quite right when you say that Johannesburg, let's get complacent. We've got Lesotho to draw a certain amount of water if it snows. So if we don't have the snow, we don't have the water. Okay, so now we have yet another issue. Johannesburg doesn't have the luxury of the sea. So if we go to various other countries where they've got desalination plants operating, they can do huge cities right on the coastal area, and they can grow those cities by drawing seawater, processing it and putting it out. We can't do that.
Tim, sorry for the interruption. Would that not be the answer in the Western Cape, desalination?
Western Cape has, I believe, only got one option, and that is desalination. Because at the end of the day, they utilize a vast amount of that water in agriculture. Agriculture desalination is extremely expensive to provide that sort of water for agriculture, and it's not always the greatest. It's the greatest because you have to mix it. The water that's being produced is a clean quality. It's like drinking chemical clean water, for example. So that's not the greatest idea for agriculture. So your rainfall really eventually will become agricultural based, and I believe that desalination is the only way that they have got. It's the only option they have. But I've got a lovely one that I look at, Mapungubwe to Cape Town. Now Mapungubwe, as we know, was one of the great kingdoms of the northern part of South Africa. It's up in that Messina sort of area. It's right up in there, and Mapungubwe was a great kingdom on top of a mountain with all sorts of wonderful fields and what have you, planted I think some 900 odd years ago. That's irrelevant, but what is relevant is that Mapungubwe had the same rainfall as Johannesburg, about 760 millimeters a year. this great kingdom, and it's not there today. Why is it not there? Well, they didn't have the structures that we have as cities. So as the rainfall fell down, and in that area, that Venetia area, the rainfall today is about 150 to 180 millimeters of rain. And consequently, as that rain dropped off, so did the kingdom. And eventually the people moved. And we've got that throughout the world when we didn't have our major cities. So right now we look at water as a convenience for the city and climate change as an inconvenience for the city. Because we've got these huge areas of great buildings, how do you up and move Johannesburg 300 kilometers to the left? Because that's where our climate is looking better. And I think we also have to be very clear that climate change is a natural phenomenon. We can't get away from that. Climate has been changing since the days of the dinosaurs, since the first seed that planted into this planet and created Earth.
A lot of the time we are blamed for climate change in terms of just, as we spoke about, the waste and the damage to the environment that we cause with our cars and, you know, with all the smog and all the rubbish that we create and dump into the environment.
Correct. Now, if we go back to our dinosaurs, climate change was accelerated, they believe, by meteor striking. And that accelerated the climate change that the dinosaurs were going through. We're doing exactly the same. Man is most probably a meteor in some ways because we are creating an accelerated climate change. We're adding too much carbon into the atmosphere. We're drawing off the natural resources of the planet, not worrying how they're going to be replaced. And it can be as simple as when you go up to the Pilanesberg. I've been in Johannesburg 25 years. As you go to Pilanesberg, mountains are now missing. And they are now in tabletops and kitchen tops around the world as they've taken out the granite. And we're using our resources. And remember that if you're a farmer, you have a look at your landscape and you say, I've got X amount of landscape, X amount of biomass, vegetation that my animals can eat, therefore I can have X amount of animals, given the rainfall or whatever. Man is the only creature on our planet that doesn't apply the rules. So
we're driven by greed, aren't we?
We are driven by greed, Julie, and we are driven to the point where we want to change everything for the convenience of man.
Absolutely.
So think of our cities, our flying vuvuzelas, the hardy-dars. We loathe them because they wake us up, but they're part of our environment.
They're so noisy.
Exactly, and they're part of our environment. It doesn't matter what we want. We want to have elephants everywhere, but we don't want them in our cities.
True.
And it all comes back to that wonderful word, NIMBY, not in my backyard. And I think that's what is so important. And now if we go back to our Mapungubwe, where as the rainfall fell, people moved. As Cape Town's rainfall has fallen, they can't move. Johannesburg can't move. We seem to forget that up until last year, we were in quite desperate straits as the Vaal Dam was disappearing down. And the Vaal Dam did exactly the same in 1995. It went down to 11%, where everybody was going, whoops, where's the water coming from? And it filled, I think in 3 weeks, the Vaal Dam rose vertically 1.2 meters per day. That is an awful lot of water coming in. The Western Cape doesn't have that sort of dam support system either.
But then that also says that it's very, as you've rightly said, poor management.
It is.
They've just not had the foresight to plan for the eventuality that they find themselves in today. But let's hold that thought.
Right.
We'll continue right after the ad break. Tim Neary, the environmentalist, is in the studio with us, talking to us about the ecosystem, the issue of the Western Cape and the dire situation that they find themselves in, and what the landscape is going to look like for the rest of South Africa in the coming months and years. So do stay with us. Any questions or comments, we're happy to take them on the open line.
Conservationist.
We're talking to Tim Neary. He's an environmentalist, and of course we're talking about our environment, the ecosystem, and very especially the dire situation in the Western Cape. Tim, what is this drought? I mean, we know that the people are really battling. There's issues around water, people queuing for hours for water. You know, we used to see this in possibly playing out in remote areas, Northern Africa, Central Asia, etc. Never ever thinking that something like that would happen to us here in South Africa, and we're seeing it playing out in front of us. We as human beings are still managing our coping skills. We still, you know, make ons maak 'n plan.
Yes.
And we get there. What's it doing to the ecosystem, to all the creepy crawlies, which are integral to the environment?
Fortunately, the ecosystem is more resilient than we are.
Ah.
And we tend to forget that also, that this is not the first drought we've had. And in 1968, we had droughts where the farmers of the Eastern Cape were going out and shooting their sheep rather than watching them die of starvation. So we've had dramatic droughts in our country. But of course, the natural environment comes back quickly. So you take the Kalahari is a beautiful example. Take somewhere like Swalu Kalahari, which is near hot as hell. And you'll look at a piece of complete desert sand. Add 5 millimeters of rain, and suddenly it comes back. Look at our grasses in Johannesburg at the end of the year. As we go through our winter, they die off. It's a simulation of drought. And as we get that rain back again, those grasses suddenly will start to come out. We don't water our lawn at our house, so we notice that dramatically. As it gets hot, no rain for a week, the grass dies, but it comes back again, and nature does that. So nature has this wonderful, resilient way of saying, okay, guys, this is a culling time, and this is a time to remove things.
So you don't water your lawn because you know it's going to revive?
We don't water the lawn because we know it's going to
naturally,
revive.
obviously.
It's going to do. Every now and again you put a little bit of water into the garden, but we mostly operate with 10% of the water that most people do in a garden environment. But back to our nature, nature just turns around and says, let me come back in my place. Anne van Dyck, who was the cheetah doyen of South Africa, I love her comment, adopt the pace of nature. Now, you and I can't do that. Okay? The television program has got parameters. It's got time parameters. So you have to work on that. And to turn around and say, well, let's run over 10 minutes or let's be 5 minutes short. Your TV program's not going to work. Nature doesn't worry about that. Nature just turns around and says, let the bush die back, it'll come back again. Burn the area with lightning, and there is another program that you can do. The importance of fire regimes and how maybe we have, as scientists, they've got fire regimes wrong in the bush. But there is a perfect example. The lightning strikes the ground, it burns everything, it kills all the animals, it kills the bugs and the beetles and everything else. But they regenerate slowly but surely. So there are always little characters, little pockets of them, and they start to move out and they start to move into other areas. So yeah, you're going to see it in the Western Cape. You'll see an effect on bird life. And nature's got another wonderful way that it turns around and says, hold on a minute, we don't have the rainfall, we don't have the food, we don't have the water, let's not breed as much. And man doesn't do that. So nature turns around and says, let's slow our breeding programs down because we know that if we breed too much, things are going to die off. So again, you don't have that same problem.
What I worry about, and I know we've had a huge problem in Johannesburg a little while ago. I heard you talking about it on one of your other shows. The issue around rodents in the Western Cape in this drought-stricken time. Are they going to multiply and are they going to cause more harm than good?
The only rodents that we really need to
I'm talking mice and rats.
Okay, so only our invaders are going to be a problem. So our invaders are the Indian black rat, Rattus rattus, and our Norwegian roof rat, the grey rat that we see around our area. Those are our two main invaders. And they will possibly proliferate during the drought period. But they do it regardless. As long as there's foodstuffs, as long as we're not cleaning up rubbish, etc., they will extend themselves. But we don't find them in our natural environment. They are city-bound. So that's very good for them. They stay in the cities. At the same time, we don't find our little field mice, our little whistling rats, etc. We don't find them in our cities, but we find them in our natural environment. So we'll look at places like the Karoo, where again, going through a drought basis, they will just simply die back, and there will always be a few of them that will come in a later stage. Some of our diseases will come out, and that's maybe rabies, that can proliferate a little bit. But look at the jackal with those. That's a lovely example of how resilient they are. And the jackal, for example, will die back from rabies, and you won't see as many jackal for 2 or 3 years. But as nature regenerates itself, and as the rainfall improves, or whatever the changes are, or as the animals adapt to those changes, the jackal numbers will come back. So again, it's the resilience of wildlife.
Of nature.
Nature is tremendously resilient. We've got some of our animals, if you think of it, hyena, for example. The smallest hyena was mostly the size of a staffy. The biggest hyena has been the size of a wildebeest. And that's been over time. They've come and gone. They've adapted and they've changed.
Okay, we've got about 2 minutes to wrap up time. Words of encouragement to the people in the Western Cape. Because of the scarcity of water, obviously there is going to be a problem with rodents, with rats, because they're not able to be, I should imagine, not as hygienic as they'd like to. So what's the best piece of advice you can give them? And then I also see a gorgeous plant here. You're going to tell us about that. So Cape Town first and then the plant.
Cape Town, I think, simply, folks, it will rain again. I mean, we know that, but at the same token, you just have to be vigilant, and you're going to have to take yourself back 100 years. And that is where you only had X amount of water, and you're just going to have to make the best of a bad situation. It's not going to go away overnight. Unfortunately, with all the squabbles from authorities, etc., the precautions that should have been taken, or the actions that should have been taken, haven't been, so we can't change that. And you're not going to look at any miracles of suddenly an iceberg docking in Cape Town and you can draw water off of it. So unfortunately, do the best you can, and don't be greedy, and understand that if you've got 25 litres of water a day, tough, you're going to have to live on it. And remember too, that although it's an inconvenience in your big town, in your houses, etc., an awful lot of South Africa still carries 25 litres of water on their head a day home to use.
Absolutely. The plant that you have here, which you brought into the studio, I think you said
That
something
is-
about endangered species.
That is the Warburgia salutaris. It's a project that we're working on, and it's one I'd love to chat to you on another occasion about. It is one of the most endangered trees. It was identified
Is
in
this a tree?
1926.
Is this going to grow into a tree?
That's going to grow
How
into
big?
a tree. About 5 meters tall, also 5 to 8 meters tall, depending on the area. And it is one of the highest medicinal plants in our country. Wow. Utilized from basically right through all traditional people as far up as Kenya. And the bark is utilized. It's utilized for all sorts of things. Malaria, venereal disease. It's utilized for chest, urinary tract problems. And it's one of the plants too that has been actually medically checked. So chemically, it's actually a correct plant.
Where best should I plant it?
South area, somewhere that's got a little bit of shade, in amongst a couple of other trees if you can, and it's very adaptable. Doesn't like frost at the first couple of years, so you've got to look after it a little bit, but after that, it's a great tree to have.
Do you just want to show this up to the camera, please? And how long will it take till it grows up to be 5 meters?
It's
5
quite
feet.
a tall, it's quite a slow growing tree. But the beauty is that working with the traditional healers, what we've done is we've changed from only using the bark to utilizing the leaves and the small twigs in the medicines that are made. And through that, it's been utilized. And hopefully, we'll never take this tree off of the red list of South Africa, but hopefully we're making it more available to the folk that use it.
Gosh, Tim, it's been fascinating having you on the show. I do hope that we can make this a once-a-month feature more, if we could. But I know that you do have time constraints, but I'd love to see you at least once a month in studio to talk about a whole host of issues and just to make us as South Africans more savvy as far as the environment is concerned.
I'd love to do that. Remember one thing, folks, doesn't matter color, creed, religion, whatever. Nature is exactly the same for everybody else. We don't have borders in nature.
Too true. The well-known Tim Neary, the environmentalist, talking to us about a whole host of issues this morning. Let's hope and pray we can have him on a regular feature right here on Let's Talk. I thoroughly enjoyed that interview, but still to come, we're going to be talking about mobility training for blind people. So do stay with us. And welcome back. We have Bashir Ibrahim in studio with us. He is all the way from down under, that is Australia. He was on the show last year sometime talking about the type of work he does. He's not an ophthalmologist or an optician, but he has a keen interest in vision and vision problems, and we're going to hand over to him to talk to us. We do know he was at Madrasa Noor in Maritzburg. It is Maritzburg, isn't it? I think he trained at least 30 of those youngsters in mobility training. Now, we touched very briefly on mobility training or mobility when he was here the last time, but I don't think we went into it deep enough. And we need to understand the importance of mobility, very especially for people who have problems with their sight. Bashir, salaam alaikum, welcome, and lovely to have you once again in the studio.
Welcome, salam, Julie. Good to be here.
How's work been? I mean, from the last time we talked, what has the developments been like in the type of work you're doing?
Well, we've kept in contact with Madrasa Noor and the staff there and the Imam Mirchi about this visit here, and this is more about finding out what the boys need, what the students are looking at, their goals and aspirations, plus also some staff training and development. So 3 of the staff from Madrasa are keenly engaging in some activities to develop their skills, knowledge and awareness, and continue the work that they have, but we're sort of upsizing and giving them some more strengths with which to work with the students.
And a sense of independence, obviously.
It is. It's about what sort of life do you want to lead? Losing your vision or being born with a vision impairment, what life should you expect? What should society expect? What should society do? And provide opportunities for people to live a normal life and to do the things that we all do. So, I mean, that's a basic human right. We talked last time about human rights and expectations, and some of the stories of the boys at the Madrasa Noor, where they come from all over the world, from Uganda, Malawi, Tanzania, South Africa, Uganda, but also Malaysia, Indonesia, and the UK. So there's a whole variety of people from all different walks of life and experiences. So this is about where people come from and where would they like to be.
Bashir, sadly, if you don't have a loved one who has a disability of any sort, very especially blindness, you don't apply your mind to it. And when you do meet people with vision problems, or any disability for that matter, you choose to ignore it because you're uncomfortable. You don't know how to engage with them as far as their disability is concerned. Now, you've worked very long in this field. What's the do's and don'ts as far as engaging with people and disabilities, very especially blind people?
It's very important to have some empathy and understand that the person, if they would like some help. So when we're talking,
I'm kind of almost afraid of saying the wrong thing.
Yeah, no, well, don't. Like anyone else, any other family member, if someone looks like they need help, just say, Julie, would you like some help with that, or would you like, do you need some help? So first thing to do is ask, and then hopefully the person has the confidence, and they may even be surprised that someone's bothered to ask what they would like.
Won't they be irritated?
Yeah,
How dare you make that assumption?
No, it's the way you do it.
Ask me if I need help.
No. So this is about positive attitudes, and,
right.
and it's all over. Both people who have a disability, but also people who, just you and I, being able to offer that assistance and ask. So sometimes it's a matter of how do you accept and decline assistance gracefully, and so that's also a public relations activity in humanity. So, if someone asks me, do you need a hand, then I would say, yes, please, or if I don't, then I'll say, no, thanks, but thank you for asking. Mm-hmm. And that's the dialogue that we want to start, where people are comfortable to offer assistance, but then also if someone is okay, then they'll just leave them to it, but be vigilant. So ask, assist, guide people, and find out what it is that they would like to help with. If someone needs to walk from one entrance of the shopping centre to the other to their favourite store, or they're looking for the bank or something like that, then guide them. Say, I'll take you. Would you like to grab my arm? And away you go. And describe things, what's happening, where what features you're passing to make it a little bit interesting, and that's the best way.
They wouldn't mind that. By and large,
not
they'd
at all.
appreciate
Absolutely.
the added information that you're sharing with them.
Absolutely, because I mean, it's better than being dragged through the shopping centre and just tagging along for the
Yes,
ride, because then
yes.
you're at the beginning and then you're at the end where
Right.
you're going, and then what happened in between.
Right.
Yeah?
Bashir, now you've worked at Madrasa Noor. You've taught the youngsters about mobility training. We're going to go into that in a little while.
Okay.
But what sort of stories have they been sharing with you? What are their challenges? What are their aspirations? And how have those stories touched you?
Individuals, you think about yourself. I mean, all over the world, people are vision impaired, blind, disabled, or they're in war-torn areas where your children are experiencing things that children in South Africa or Australia would never, parents would never dream of them being exposed to all those horrors and things like that. So one of the things is the privilege, having the right to basic food, water, shelter, love, attention, and hope. They're the things that stick out. Now, the Madrasa Noor situation is that it's an amazing organisation, and the philosophy, right from the board of directors, the Imam Mirchi, who heads up, and all these staff and volunteers and the boys themselves, it's inspirational. So my work is very small with them, because they're doing it themselves, teaching Braille, propagating the Islamic knowledge and the Quran, and in alternate formats. So, Braille, large print, all this.
With Braille?
Gee.
In this day and age of advanced technology, we don't even know where it's going to be taking us in 5 years' time.
Gee.
It's really cutting edge. Are we still teaching Braille, or are there other forms of assistance and assisted reading as far as blind people are concerned?
Braille will always have a purpose in life, because Braille is literacy. It's actually reading. So it's a language in itself, and
the touch,
you
the
learn,
sensation of
all
touch.
that you learn to read. Now, if you listen to a book, you do not learn punctuation, grammar, spelling. It's all phonetic, okay? So you hear it. So by learning Braille and reading it, you are actually engaging in a literary activity. All right? Does that make sense? So that's a basic human right. Now, with technology, though, if you're a Braille reader, you can send information in your format, Braille, and your language to you. If I sent you an email, and it would be in print for you. So it's accessible for you. And then when you reply to me, I can access your email or your letter or correspondence on my Braille keyboard using the high-tech. So you see, high-tech and low-tech can actually work together, but in the right combination, and for people to learn how to use that, and also be available, because sometimes the equipment can be a little bit prohibitive in expense. But does that make sense? So literacy is very important.
I'm just thinking about translating something from Chinese into English. So I should imagine a similar concept, but we're just talking Braille and being translated into a way that you and I can understand, and vice versa.
Sure.
Let's hold that thought. Let's go for our first ad break, and then we'll continue discussing Madrasa Noor, mobility training, and lots more as far as blind people are concerned.
Sure.
Bashir Ibrahim, all the way from Australia, talking to us about mobility training. If you have any questions or comments, please call in. He is here till at least next month. So if you'd like him to come in and talk to you, or perhaps give you some advice as far as your organization or your specific condition is concerned, call in and let's put you in touch with this amazing person. Definitely into the final segment of the show this morning with Brother Bashir Ibrahim, all the way from Australia. You may remember he talked with us last year sometime on his visit to this country, and on his visit promoting this amazing work that he's involved in. And we're going to talk some more about issues around mobility, and also he has a pamphlet in his hand, an amazing pamphlet. I'd like him to talk us through it, and then we'll talk about mobility. So Bashir, you want to show that up to the camera? I'm not sure if they can get a real close-up on all of that. It's asking questions on, is your eyesight changing? Who should be aware of information like this?
Everybody, But
And I mean, apart from going regularly to your optometrist once a year or
Sure.
whatever, how aware should we be about this kind of stuff? And just read through it very, very quickly.
Sure. Basically, this is information for professionals, everyday people, and anyone who's interested in what's happening to your eye health. So, this is produced by Vision Australia, the company I work for in Australia, in Brisbane, and with offices all around the country. And it's the leading blindness agency in Australia. So, the pamphlet basically tells you a little bit about the incidence of vision impairment in Australia. So, in Australia at the moment, 357,000 people are legally blind or have low vision. And then that figure's expected to rise to 540,000 by 2030.
Because?
Age-related eye conditions, just eye health issues and so on. And they're things that perhaps aren't as preventable as possible. Yeah.
And one of the biggest issues really, and you've got it on that list, is the issue around diabetes.
Sure.
We take that very lightly, and we know that millions of people around the world present with type 2 diabetes, and that's obviously the lifestyle diabetes. It's just a very bad food and health and lifestyle choices that we make.
Yeah, it's a whole combination of things, Julie. So, the most common causes of blindness in the world and low vision are macular degeneration, cataracts, and glaucoma. However, diabetic retinopathy and retinitis pigmentosa are also pretty high up on the list. But we haven't added one other one, and I think I mentioned it last time, about cortical vision impairment, head injuries, acquired brain injury, accidents and injury to the head itself and the optic nerve. So this is another issue. So when we talk about the services of, say, Vision Australia that provides support and services to people of all ages, from very little babies right through to people who lose their vision later in life and whose vision can't be corrected with spectacles or contact lenses or surgery. And so then we move into the macular degeneration, that's the central vision loss, cataracts, most correctable form of blindness in the world.
True.
The only correctable form
True.
is cataracts, and that's the lens is removed and a new one may be able to be put back in. However, if the retina at the back of the eye is damaged, then the cataract may not bring back all vision because the retina is damaged from glaucoma.
Can I just ask you a question on cataracts? What if someone's had a cataracts implanted or inserted or whatever the terminology is
Sure.
10 years ago, for example, and they're having problems with vision again? Can they undergo another operation to kind of give them better vision?
It's possible, and it's a matter of going to see the ophthalmologist or the optometrist initially, if you can't get to the ophthalmologist, to have a look at what's happening. And to, over 10 years, that's a big time. So there's a lot of other issues, health issues. Maybe there's some retinal changes as well going on that also affect your vision. So it may not just be the cataract. So this is about monitoring the whole lifestyle aspect. So when we talk about, for instance, diabetic retinopathy and the impact that diabetes has, when you get to severe diabetic retinopathy and blindness, then the diabetic condition has progressed to the extent that is extremely severe. So you're talking peripheral neuropathy, maybe even as severe as amputations of the toes and fingers and things like that. Other endocrinological impacts, kidneys, liver, all these things can also be affected.
Okay, we've got about 4 minutes to wrap up time. Let's talk about mobility training. How important is it? Do we place enough emphasis on mobility training, and what type of training have you done with the kids at Madrasa Noor?
Mobility training is essential. It's the link between when you get up from bed to walk to the bathroom, then to the kitchen, then out the door to wherever you go, work, school, your university, whatever you're doing every day, even just to visit family and friends and be part of the community. So mobility actually links everything you actually do when you're moving and you're not lying down or sitting. Mobility is a action and a live event, so that the importance of safety, independence, dignity and ability all come in. So this is about promoting the positive image of individuals that, yes, they are capable of travelling and doing those things, but when they get to where they're wanting to go, they're also performing tasks like you and I, studying, working, volunteering, teaching, doing all this, being part of the family or network. So this is all part of the importance of mobility. So with the guys at Madrasa Noor, we're talking about they've received some training in their own countries, a little bit, it's very sporadic, but then once they came to Madrasa Noor, they've got some grounding, but we're formalising that into a curriculum so that the students can learn the foundational skills, and then those foundational skills will transfer throughout their life, so they will build, develop, and then add value onto those skills and abilities.
What about assistive devices? I'm thinking canes, you know, you get those blind, the white canes for blind people.
Sure.
I know we touched on guide dogs the last time around. Would that all form part of the mobility training?
Yes, absolutely. So yeah, you're talking about the whole individual. So you're looking at activities of daily living. You know, can you make a bed? Can you cook, make tea and coffee? Can you butter bread and toast?
So you take them through all of those events, so to speak.
Yeah, absolutely. It's
to
about
make them
looking
as
at
independent as possible.
It's about looking at the whole needs, not just one aspect. So putting the package together. So that's daily living, technology, communication, mobility, all part of that as well. And lifelong learning, education, maybe getting jobs and things like that too.
Bashir, people's sight or abilities differ from person to person. So you've got to actually individualise this training, am I right?
Yes.
Doesn't that take up too much time?
No, it depends on how you structure it, and the assessment is essential. So you know, my wife Fatima and I and my daughter Aisha are also working on some projects with Madrasa Noor and some friends of mine here who are mobility instructors. So the idea is to look at, all right, we'll be running a series of workshops for Braille, for example, in Durban, Johannesburg and Newcastle initially, but we're also looking at providing daily living equipment. So a range of things to help with daily living, such as pouring tea and coffee, not being worried about spilling, but the strategies. And it's okay to have equipment, like the canes and things like that, and the liquid indicators for pouring tea, hot liquids, but it's also having the training to do it. So the foundational thing is, you might have all this equipment and things available or not know about and then find out about, but how do you best utilise that to suit your needs? So we individualise, but there are some things we'll do group as well. For instance, Madrasa Noor, we can do in groups you know, of 10, we can do the protective techniques, the trailing, the walking in open space, because it's a college and it's big spaces and things like that, and then walking between the buildings and things like that using the cane. We can teach the foundational skills for individuals, but then we can do it in a group setting too.
So people watching us this morning and they'd like some individual training, they could get hold of you, but because you're based in Australia, is there someone that you could refer them on to? I do know you're going to be here, or you're going to be around till February sometime. So give us some contact details, and also give us the good news that there are other people like yourself around in South Africa that people could get hold of.
Sure. So two things is that while I'm here, you know,
individual and
Fatima,
group training.
people are most welcome to call us, and we can assist them with some advice and information. So my wife Fatima, we've got the phone number that you can give out.
Can you please give it out?
I don't actually
have it. You don't have it with you. All right, you leave it with us.
Tasneem's got it, so it's on the card.
So people can get in touch with us here at the studio, and we'll give out that number.
Yeah.
Any other organisations in South Africa that we could refer them on to?
Well, we're in the process of creating links with them. So the South African National Council for the Blind in Durban, and a friend of mine, Moira, is here. So she's retired, but she's a mobility instructor, and we're meeting her, or she's running a conference in mobility later this month. So I'll be establishing some links, and I'll provide you with some local contacts.
All right, we've come to the end of the show. You've also told me that you and your wife are coming back in a short while later this year to do what?
So we're going to run a series of Braille workshops to introduce people to the concept of learning Braille and get them started, and then link them in with local services, but also with us. We can do stuff by Skype and distance using technology, but then we'll also be running a series of workshops for carers, friends, family, and individuals who want to look at some specific mobility assessments and training.
Please make contact with us so we can talk about that when you get here. I'm sure it's of great interest to lots of families who have a loved one who is blind or partially sighted. Excellent. Wonderful chatting to you. We look forward to our next chat in a couple of months' time.
Inshallah. Go
well and continue doing the amazing work that you're doing.
Exactly.
That was Brother Bashir Ibrahim, all the way from Australia, talking about mobility training, and that of course brings us to the end of the show this morning. Thank you so much for your company. A big thank you to the production team for always making the show happen. And till Wednesday morning at the same time, take care on the road. And as always, it is Assalamu alaikum and Khuda Hafiz from me, Julie Alli.
يا هلا 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 حن قلبي على جمعة الخير هلا حن قلبي على جمعة الخير هلا يا هلا ويا هلا ويا هلا ويا هلا يا هلا ويا هلا ويا هلا ويا هلا يا هلا ويا هلا ويا هلا